Hey guys, I'm going to do more replay analysis. This one was submitted by Annihilator, who's Platinum, and he says the guy just walked over and won by losing half the resources, and I'm not sure how I could have taken a better fight. So this game, it was really passive. Like, you don't scout, so you end up preparing for everything, especially with these early cannons, which is extremely unnecessary if you just scout. The amount of resources that you lose by scouting is way less than the amount of resources you have to put towards drop defense or whatever these cannons are for by putting all these different things down and preparing for everything. You would be able to cut these very easily if you just scouted him. You would have seen he did a completely passive. I think it was gasless rocks expand like it was Wings of Liberty. So you wouldn't have to do anything. You'd just be able to sit back and do whatever you want because he's not going to be attacking you for a good 8 minutes. So I would honestly suggest scouting even on 4-player maps. This one's technically 3 because you can't spawn in one in horizontal. But the forge, especially since you get it so early only for the cannons, you don't even get to upgrade with it for a very long time because you have to put your other resources towards the Colossus and Colossus range. So the forge itself is just sitting idle. The cannons in this game served absolutely zero purpose, literally do nothing the entire game. They're just a waste. So everything that you had to do to compensate for literally anything that could happen, it cut into your build a bit, and you could have easily just not done them by simply scouting. You just like make nothing. Like, you have so many minerals, like fuck. Like, usually when you're doing an opener, you usually get 3 stalkers out of your first gateway before warp gate's done, so that way you can have some sort of map control. You can send them on the map. Like, you don't even know where the fuck he is because you send your first stalker out. You don't even know where he is right now. Well, you do, but like, you don't know until he goes in there, and that could have easily just been a dead stalker, or it could have been you losing because your only unit on the entire field is going to a base where he's not at, and he's doing like a 3-rack stim push, and he's at your main base right now, and you only have a Colossus. Like, that's a game ender. So you not scouting not only hurts your build, and that you have to compensate for things like drops that won't become, it's also hurting you because you don't actually know what he's doing, so you're not making the correct unit response to something that could also be happening that you don't know. I hope that made sense because I said that kind of weirdly. So what was I going at? What was I going to say before that? Oh yeah, you get the 3 stalkers to get map control. You can go on the watchtower. You can go in front of his base here, see when he moves out, and then you can run away. And if you're good enough, you can kite the units back as they go across the map. And it also just gives you some form of standing army because you literally only have a Colossus and a Stalker and a Mothership Core as your army right now, and you have a lot of minerals banked up doing nothing. Then after warp gets done, you usually warp in a couple zealots and a sentry. You should always be getting at least 2 to 3 sentries in PvT. I'd say 3 is the maximum. You don't really ever want more unless you're doing it all in. 3 plus is getting to the unnecessary gas limitation count, kind of, where you really need the gas to be put into something else more effective. Like, 4 sentries doesn't really do much extra than what 3 would do in this matchup particularly. So yeah, you just want to be spending money. You want to be making things, which eventually you do, but only after warp gets done. So now you finally get to use your forge because it was a little too early because you compensated for too much, blah blah blah. And you just continue to not scout because you don't know what he's doing. You're forced to get Colossus only early because you're afraid he could be attacking you. You don't know. So if you were actually scouting and realized that he wasn't doing anything, you would be able to make an observer first, so you can go in a scout and see exactly what he's doing. You would be able to see when his army moves out. Luckily for you, he plays very passively this game, and the first attack or two isn't actually what kills you, it's the third. But sometimes there's games where they'll attack earlier than you expect, and you won't be ready for it. So, luckily for you, this guy sucks. I say that from like every game, so I'm terrible. So he just kind of walks up here, all clumped up in 3 Colossus and only 1 Viking. He just dies. He just loses some shit. You lose a Colossus, which is really not ideal, especially when you have all these stalkers doing nothing over here. Again, you're compensating for everything when that thing is not even happening. Like, you can see when drops are coming from this observer, but you still have a bunch of stalkers here waiting anyway, and his army's over here. These need to be over here. You could also have the watchtowers, so you can see when things are happening. You have a unit out on the map or something, so you can see when it's happening. This observer is serving its purpose of showing drops, so you don't need these things here when you have 3 bases to cover, and he's most likely going to be doing a frontal assault. So luckily you defend anyway. Luckily, I mean, his army was kind of weird. But losing a Colossus isn't really that good. You're still even on resources lost because of that. You also lost a lot of zealots. If you had a couple force fields, you would have been able to chunk that up nice and easily. Only a few things would have been attacking, but there were no sentries. So then he just goes home and macros up. He's playing just, again, very defensive. He goes for a double engineering bay. You're only on 1 forge while going passive Colossus play. That's really bad. You should always be going double forge when you're going against, when you're doing this kind of style. There's no reason to ever not do that. Again, he attacks into you before he really has any semblance of an army, so he just kind of loses it, doesn't really engage or commit to the fight. Your probe production is... Whoa, what did I just hit? What the fuck? I hit D. I don't know what I just did. Alright, so your probe production is kind of lackluster. At 15 minutes, you should definitely have max probes. At 75, you're only at 60. So make sure you're making probes non-stop and whatnot. This should be absolutely fully saturated by 14 minutes. No question about that at all. So then he just kind of sits here, and you do the same. There's no attempt to ever get on the map and try to do anything whatsoever. There's no attempt to draw him out. There's no attempt to damage his macro play. He's at a fully saturated 3 bases. Terran needs a little less SCVs than Protoss does because of mules. So he's fully saturated on 3 base, honestly, before you are, with the account of mules. So right now he's full booming economy. He's able to produce anything he wants at rapid speed. As you can see, once that third kicks in, you're now really dropping in supply compared to him. His army supply is much bigger. So there needs to be some form of counter harassment to him just macroing up willy-nilly. Like, you have to try to stop this. You can't just let him go full 3 base, do whatever he wants. You'll never win like that, because he's just going to be able to do whatever he wants. Even if you defend attack after attack after attack, it won't matter because he has full economy. He can just continue to reproduce everything non-stop. So it'll just be trades. Unless he just takes an awful engagement and loses way too much more than he should or something. But that doesn't... Maybe it does happen in Gold League or Platinum League or whatever, but... So yeah, there needs to be a Warp Prism or something. Like, you have 5 Colossus at this point. You can easily stick a Warp Prism in somewhere in that, especially since he wasn't really attacking that much. So besides the double forge just being late, the blink also being late. If you're going for a Stalker Colossus passive style, double forge and blink are unbelievably necessary. That's like the staple of this style, is to get double upgrades with blink. You're not putting any resources towards any form of cutesy aggression or kind of warp prism harass or extra tech. Nothing. Like, the extra tech is the double forge and the blink. That is what rounds out this composition, so it's absolutely necessary. Like it's not like you're broke. You can easily do that. So then he just macros up, maxes out, and kills you. Because you did nothing to harm his economy any whatsoever, he just comes up here and attacks and wins. But this is still a fight that you could absolutely win, even though he was far ahead in army supply. And let me go back so I can actually note what those few things are in real time. This is a very simple game. There's not much else to it other than what I said earlier and then what I'm about to say with this fight. So one, this comes back to earlier. There's not a single sentry in this army. That helps immensely versus things like this, especially when they just go up a 3 force field wide ramp. Actually 4 force field wide ramp. He just sat in the middle of it the whole time. This is the worst possible place this person could ever fight. The only reason this fight went as good as it did with you doing literally nothing is because he fought in this choke. If it was anywhere else and you did the same amount of put the same amount of effort into that engagement as you did, wait, what did I say? If you took that engagement anywhere else on the map and you put the same amount of effort in it as you did with this fight, it would have gone unbelievably worse. So force fields, he runs up, 1, 2, 3, 4. Half his army stuck, unable to do anything. The other half, or the one half, stuck here, about to die to all this shit. Other half stuck completely behind, doing absolutely nothing. So force fields, 1, make this unbelievably easy. 2, you don't have many zealots, and the ones that are in the back, in the middle of the army, unable to get onto the actual units themselves. The only time they actually get into the army is when all the stalkers in front of them die. The zealots need to be positioned in the front to go in first. And then the third, and probably the most important thing in this whole fight, you're going Stalker Colossus. The whole point of Stalker Colossus is that the Colossus kill the bio. And because of this, the Terran needs something to kill the Colossus, aka the Viking. So then what you get response is the Stalker. The Stalkers did absolutely nothing to these Vikings. The only ones that died were ones that were a little too far forward, and the Stalkers auto-targeted them themselves. Wow, that's a weird fucking set of words. The first thing you should always be doing in a Stalker Colossus fight after the force fields and Guardian Shield is blinking the Stalkers. Again, your blink is very late, barely finishes in time. Blinking the Stalkers to the side and shift clicking on every single one of these Vikings. These Vikings, he's so low on Vikings. He makes so many things that aren't Vikings. Like this army should never beat this army ever. If you just shift click on these Vikings, there's so little. These drop in half a. Well, I can't say half a second. They don't all drop in half a second. They drop half a second each, so maybe like a combined total of 3 seconds. With this amount of Stalkers, these all get one-shotted, so what I'm saying. These will drop instantly, the Colossus will remain untouched, these bio units will just melt unbelievably quickly, and all of a sudden you win the fight. But because you don't do that at all, like only at the very end do you kind of try to start doing it, it's too late. Everything but the Colossus are dead at that point. Like, see how long like the last thing left alive in this are the Colossus. That just shows how little Vikings he had and how little of an impact they would have, or they end up having, and how much more important the bio is in this composition than the Vikings. If you just kill the Vikings, all the Colossi stay alive. The bio does nothing. And that's when you're dead. So basically, you just have to get a couple sentries so that you can chunk up the army and just take it in small bite-sized pieces to make it better. And then make sure the zealots are in front, and then blink the stalkers over so that they can. And then shift click. Shift click is the huge important part. You don't want to be manually shooting one, waiting for the attack animation to go. Okay, does it go down health? Okay, cool, it died. Okay, now go click on this one. Okay, cool, that one died. Alright, click on that one. You just want to be boom, 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 boom. Shift click them all. Then they'll drop like flies. And so, other than that, I don't really have much else to say with this game. It's pretty straightforward game in my opinion. So, hope you enjoyed it.